The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, recorder. Do you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, recorder. Do you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, recorder. Did you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk. The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
It is the 27th day of November 2025. We are taking this month and the full 2025 year, and we are taking it steadily, almost coming to the end of this year. We thank God that you and I are still alive, and this is the Mighty Drive, a show here at the Alternative Digital TV. We always come in here first to give you the mighty global news updates, a moment where we take you through the news that are hitting headlines in our country, Uganda, and even outside. Now, following breaking news coming in from Guinea-Bissau, we have learned that the military coup has happened over there. The military has taken over the entire power in the country following the elections that took place, and now the results were supposed to be released today. Now the military has taken over. That story and many others coming in the mighty global news update. Thank you so much for being part of us, and we believe you're having a good day over there. If the things are not going on well for you, our prayers still continue to be that may everything that you wish to achieve in this remaining month to end 2025 come to pass, and you achieve that. That's our prayer, and a prayer that we always wish every viewer who watches us every day. And if you are joining us for the very first time, please consider subscribing and joining this mighty platform that is trusted by millions of people, because we are non-partisan. We are reliable. The information we give here is reliable, and you can rely on our information to make an informed decision. And of course, we always involve you in our discussions. That's why we ask you to be part of the conversation by submitting in your questions through the comment section, and even submitting on the topics we always talk about. Here we prioritize matters of national importance, and if that is something you love, please don't hesitate. Tap just the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, such that whenever we go online, you're the first to know. Now, starting the mighty global news updates, I'm Kenneth Rubatusimbira. First story, the Electoral Commission yesterday held a press conference talking about the 2026 general elections and the news that has been coming out of these elections. Of course, they were referring to some incidents where the police and the other security agencies have been having hard time with some of the presidential candidates. Now, the Electoral Commission, through the chairperson, Justice Simon Mgenyi Byabakama, they said that some political candidates, especially the presidential candidates, have been misusing their rights they were given by the Electoral Commission. Now conduct campaigns saying that some candidates are carrying out processions, something the Electoral Commission says was never accepted, and the Electoral Commission still insists that up to now processions are not accepted, that these politicians or these political candidates should avoid processions because they disrupt the freedoms of other road users, that these processions disrupt everything, disrupt trade, and sometimes lead to accidents on the road. And they are now calling upon all political candidates to avoid processions, saying that they will not tolerate any form of processions, and that's why even some candidates have been having hard time with the police. And this comes at a point where some opposition figures are saying that the Electoral Commission has been silent. We saw the leader of the flag bearer, the presidential flag bearer for the National Unity Platform, Honorable Rubatusimbira, coming out and saying that the Electoral Commission has been quiet while what they said, the atrocities are being committed by the government, especially now the police arresting their supporters. And now the chairperson of the Electoral Commission said that it is very now hard for the Electoral Commission to defend some politicians because of carrying out processions which are not allowed. And now the police says that the camp of Honorable Kyagulanyi has been violating these guidelines, carrying out processions, and now that the police is not ready to tolerate that. Also, Justice Simon Mgengi talked about the issue of campaigns, saying that some, especially the presidential candidates, have been campaigning alongside the roads, carrying out campaigns alongside the roads, something that was not allowed, and among the guidelines that these people were given, they were asked not to carry out such. Regarding the issue of protest vote, where, especially in the NUP camp, where the voters were asked that after voting they should not go away, they should instead stay behind and make sure their vote is secure. Now the Electoral Commission said they will be having enough election protectors, that no one is needed and no one is allowed to be near these polling stations after they have cast in their vote, that no one should stay there, and that whoever tries to stay there is likely to face the worst. That is from the police, saying that some polling stations are small, and now it will be difficult for the Electoral Commission to carry out other processes post now casting, that if the people are there. Now the security forces may be triggered to push these people away, and he said that it is nowhere in the law where the people have to come and be there, that they are protecting the vote, that each candidate is given that freedom to bring in the people they trust so that they can be the agents and now protect their vote. Saying that that number is enough and no more protectors will be needed, and this now contradicts with the NUP call of the voters now staying at the polling station to protect the vote. Of course, the NUP was condemning some of these, saying that the people have a right to protect their vote and they can just withdraw a few meters from the demarcated grounds of the polling station where the other people may not access, and now staying a little bit behind, but making sure they observe everything that takes place there. Now the police, of course, had also hinted on that. We are waiting to see how this will go, whether now the people who want to protect their own vote to that extent will be given freedom to be there, or it will be different. But of course, the Electoral Commission has warned, saying that no one should dare stay there, because the polling stations, one, are not enough in size, that they are very small and congested, and again, that these protectors are already there. The election observers will be there. They are from even outside the country, and that there is no need for every citizen now becoming a vote protector in that manner. That was the Electoral Commission press conference, and the message from the chairperson, Justice Simon Mgengi regarding the 2026 general elections. Of course, he talked about some of the numbers that they have. Now that the 2026 general elections, we are expecting over 21,681,491 voters. And in this, the women are the biggest in number. Of course, we have over 11,347,129, making 53%, meaning that women are the registered voters. Most 53% of them are women. And now the men are standing at 47%, the number being 10,334,362. That is some of the statistics that were given out by the Electoral Commission. Now, away from that, regarding this story that has been hitting headlines and even some people making it look like something fun. Regarding the Indian Ocean, after President Museveni had come out to say that Uganda is entitled to that ocean, that it does not only Kenyans, it is for Uganda as well. Now there are some people, a group of business people here in Uganda, who have run to court saying that Kenya is violating their rights. So they ran to court, the East African Court, seeking for justice regarding the freedoms, or that they need free access to this Indian Ocean. These people say that the Indian Ocean has been very difficult to access somehow, that there are laws that have been disrupting their trade, and they also said that they need clear guidelines. They need free access to the Indian Ocean to carry out their trade. They said still that they have been facing hard time carrying out trade there, especially during moments where there are riots in Kenya or even some wars, that they need now clear rules that should be now put in place to make sure that these Ugandan business people or the business community should have free access to the Indian Ocean and now do not have to suffer anymore while doing business there, regardless of the situation now in Kenya. That is it. The message from Moses Opolot, one of the officials leading these business people, said that during riots and wars, Uganda faces challenges, especially in trade, as now the new rules apply to these traders. They cannot clearly bring in their goods from outside, now bringing them to Uganda, and that now they need the East African Court to look into this matter and provide lasting solutions. Now back to the 2026 general elections. Yesterday, Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, the presidential candidate and flag bearer for the National Unity Platform, was in Buyikwe. He was welcomed warmly. Thousands of people were there, and it was painted red, shouting "People power" everywhere, much as the police, of course, came in, and there was some sort of disruption here and there. We saw some police officers try to now reduce some of the people who were running after Kyagulanyi following this campaign team of Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. Wherever he was going, the police tried to even stop some of them. This was difficult to do. Some people, of course, forced themselves and had to continue following Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. The police was triggered now to spread tear gas, but this did not stop thousands of people from following Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. Some journalists, as you see on that screen, their cars were damaged. As you see on that, the window was hit. During that disruption over there, thousands still followed Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, and the police was trying to reduce the crowds that were following him, trying to guide them here and there. Now, of course, time reached and Honorable Kyagulanyi Ssentamu was forced to get out of the car and now faced these police officers. He ran it to one of the officers who was suspected to be the leader or the one commanding these security forces. They are asking them why they were spraying tear gas all over. But of course, the police was trying to ask these people to not follow Kyagulanyi where he was going. We saw him cry while seeing this situation. Honorable Kyagulanyi shed tears and asked the Ugandans not to give up. But later on, the campaign was conducted, and he asked the people to now vote the National Unity Platform and now wait for the new Uganda under his leadership. In this race, he has other 8 people. Of course, he has to beat all of them, including the incumbent President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who is the presidential now flag bearer for the National Resistance Movement. Somebody, Chagulanyi says, has been a dictator and has to leave the Ugandans to enjoy their peace. Of course, the NRM team says they are here to protect the gains and no one has to scare them. Of course, President Museveni was in Kanungu and asking the people of that particular area and to vote him into office and protect the gains achieved by the National Resistance Movement government. Robert Kasabante, also in the race, was in Kitgum and Lamo, and he is also the presidential flag bearer for the National Peasants Party. He had a hard time with the police as well, here and there. The police trying to tell him to conduct his campaign rally somewhere different from where he wanted. But nonetheless, he asked the people of those particular areas of Kitgum and Lamo to vote him into office, saying that he will better this country and everything will move on. Well, Nandala Mafabi was also in Ruelo, and he promised to compensate all those that were affected by the NRA bush war that took place in the 1980s. War that brought President Museveni in power. Of course, some people were saying that they never got compensation, they never benefited, much as they played a crucial role in bringing this government in power. They are saying that the NRM government has not rewarded them or compensated them. Now that they need, of course, another leader, and of course, Honorable Nathan Ramafabi said he will do everything good to make sure they achieve their development. Now, in our international news, as I told you in the very beginning, the coup d'etat happened in Guinea-Bissau following elections that took place there, and now the results were supposed to be released today, but this has not been able to be, this has not happened because the military took control in Guinea-Bissau. Of course, this comes at a moment where the incumbent president, Umaro Sissoco Embalo, is seeking a second term, and he ran against opposition contender Fernando Diaz and 11 others. Now, these two, Fernando Diaz and the incumbent Umaro Sissoco Embalo, were seeking, of course, were in this race. They were the top in the race, but both of them had now declared themselves successful, each camp saying that they had won the elections. Much as the Electoral Commission had not come out to say that this had won. Of course, the results were supposed to be released today, but none of them has had waited for these results. Every group had said they were the best. They had won the election. The camp of Diaz, Fernando Diaz, had said they won the election. The camp of the incumbent president, Umaro Sissoco Embalo, had said they had won as well. But of course, the results were to be released today by the Electoral Commission, and this now has not happened. The military has taken over, and they say they foresaw chaos happening in the country and that they could not wait. They had to come in. They say that the election had not been free and fair, and now they were not going to trust the results. Now the military coup has taken over in Guinea-Bissau. This is not the first time this is happening in Africa, and even particularly now in Guinea-Bissau, it has been happening for more times, and now the question remains why this happens. And that will be part of the things we'll talk about in our discussion here. I'll be having our guest, and we shall be looking at some of these, what is causing these military coups in Africa, how are they a threat to rule of law, as well as some of this strong topic of the global commons, where now countries are having conflicts over these global commons or resources that are shared by all countries, regardless of the jurisdictions from any particular country, or resources you may say are for all people, now including the Indian Ocean that President Museveni has been talking about, and saying that it could lead to a war soon from now if nothing happens. Now, that is those are some of the things we'll be talking about in the discussion, but for now, the Mighty Global News Updates marks the end. We'll be coming in here shortly with our guests. Don't go away. Tap that like button and share to a friend. Good morning for now.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi, Rogers. Can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes, it can. Although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital.
Go to the church,
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, recorder. Do you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Good morning and thank you once again for being part of us. This now is the Mighty Drive. I welcome you from the Mighty Global News Updates, a moment where we were taking a close look at what's happening in our country, Uganda, what next, even outside the country, Uganda, of course. Now our guest will be joining us shortly. Kenneth Rubatusimbira, if you're joining us for the very first time, and we believe you're enjoying these conversations always. Here we prioritize matters of national importance, and if this is something you love, please feel free to share this conversation to a friend. Now, as a rule of law continues to be a challenge, or even continues to lack space in Africa, several incidents or several attempts have been made to make sure there's a rule of law here and there. Several platforms coming out to make sure there is at least some sort of freedom that now Ugandans or even other people in Africa can enjoy. But there is a threat which is now being military coups taking over in Africa. Several coups have been happening in our countries here in Africa, here and there, which is a threat, a major threat to now a rule of law. As these coups come in place, they now topple governments, elected governments, governments by the people. Now these military regimes come in with now strong rules here and there. Now following the incident of now that is happening in Guinea-Bissau, where the military has taken over the country. After 2 people in the race, as I showed you in the updates, they were over 11 people in the race, but 2 of them, of course, the incumbent and now the top opposition figure there who was in the race, they had declared themselves winners. Before the Electoral Commission actually had released the exact results. The results were supposed to be released today, but none of these 2 had waited for the results. And now the military, after realizing maybe that gap, decided to come in, take full control. Bullets were heard outside the presidential palace. The military were now taking over, and as we speak, the government of Guinea-Bissau is under military rule. We don't know when now fresh elections will be held. Of course, after these military leaders came and took over, they said everything that was done by the Electoral Commission had to be nullified, and that they were not going to accept anything from the Electoral Commission, that the election was not free and fair, and that they were not going to accept anything that happened in that particular area, as you're seeing on that screen. Of course, several people are now in tension. They don't know what next. They do not know whether this military regime coming in will now give room for democracy or even allow the Electoral Commission to conduct fresh elections. Some of the opposition figures in the country had been denied participation in this election. They were denied their rights to be part of the election. This has been the trend here in Africa, where some of those seen as a threat by some political candidates or by those in power have always been in jail. As we speak in Tanzania, Tundu Lissu was detained following some misunderstandings between him and now the Electoral Commission there. He was agitating for electoral reforms, and now he was put in custody, leaving room for now Samia Suluhu Hassan to now win with a landslide victory. That was the moment now there here in our neighboring country, Tanzania. Of course, main opposition figures being detained. The same now had happened in Guinea-Bissau, leaving now room for probably a military coup, and there is now a continuous decline of rule of law here and there. And that is one of the topics we will be discussing with my guest if he does come in here. Of course, he's about, we shall be getting more information, but we believe he's on his way coming in here. Of course, you asked to give in your opinion. What do you think of these military coups that are happening in Africa? Who is to blame? Do we say that the leaders in power are the problem? Is it our military that is indisciplined and not patient? Why do we have to change government in that way? Because these coups are not happening for the first time. We had one in Niger, we had one in Burkina Faso, Sudan, Guinea, Mali. Here and there, military coups in Africa are no longer news. And now this is a very great threat to rule of law. As I told you, after these military officials or the military regimes have taken over, they abolished the parliament, they established their own rules. And now as we speak, of course, in Guinea-Bissau there is a curfew. The borders have been closed, no flights coming in or even going out. Such a moment where there is now a risk of losing all the rights enjoyed by these citizens. Yes, we may understand that there has been some abuse of human rights. Maybe there has been corruption. Now, like Guinea-Bissau, there has been an incident Guinea-Bissau has been accused of prioritizing illegal drug dealings and selling of drugs in their country. But still, do we need the military taking over? Is it not a threat to our democracy? What else do we have to do to make sure that we make anything better, anything that is out of line? How do we now reshape our countries and make them achieve the best without now having the military take over, and now we have another chaos? Actually, these military regimes, most of the times, if you follow history, do not end up well. They are dictators. They don't respect human rights in at least most of the countries. We have seen here in Sudan, the two military commanders now dividing the country, each group now having their own almost government. Several states within one state, states believing in a certain leader and another one believing in a different leader, leading to more disruptions, and now putting peace at risk everywhere in Africa. What is causing these military coups? I was asking, is it the presidents we have in Africa? Do we say that our laws are not working? Because there is no law that gives freedom to the military to now take over whenever anything goes on wrong. And another question is, our organizations, the African Union, we have had several bodies. Are they silent? Have we seen them work? Because we may see military coups as a last resort. Probably, according to these military officials, say they are always triggered to now take over, seeing more potential threat coming in. Should we say that our organizations have not worked here and there? Of course, your opinions matter to us. Drop them in the comment section, and I'll be going through some of these, trying to find out what really causes this. Of course, some of other things we need to talk about this morning is the property rights. We have had global commons, or those resources that are shared by all countries, especially the now oceans we have in now the airspace. Recently we had President Museveni talk about the Indian Ocean, and of course some Ugandans took it lightly, and all over social media were making fun of it. Talking about the Indian Ocean, some of course saying they want to go there and now have freedoms and enjoy life that side. We are waiting to see what really happens, and we will also be talking about that. Now, as I speak, my guest is in studios. We are taking in a short break, and we'll come back shortly with our guest. Good morning.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi, Rogers. Can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes, it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Our guest is already here in studios as I promised. Of course, a promise is a debt. Now at least I have what to say. He is already here with me, and of course we are going to delve deeper into our topical discussion. Today we are taking a look at rule of law and property rights in facilitating development. And our look is not only focused here in Uganda, but we are taking a bigger picture, seeing the whole of Africa. And joining me is Mr. Katushabe Ronald. He's a lawyer and a human and a justice hunter. We are lucky to have you this morning. Thanks for joining us. Say hello to our viewers.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kenneth Digitalk. I'm extremely humbled to be hosted here. Once again, like I said, I'm Katushabe Ronald, also known as Justice Hunter, a lawyer by profession. And it's a privilege to be hosted by Ugandans when it comes to discussing rule of law and property rights. These are very key, passionate issues for our country, and that tend to take Africa ahead. We are in a season of elections where it comes out with consequences. A case in point, issues of inflation, people losing their property, human rights abuses. So these are key pertinent issues that we are bound to discuss and create for remedies to avoid losing lives, losing property, and ensuring that we have better governance for our state. Thank you so much, dear Ugandans, Africa, and the entire world, viewers of Digital.
Well, as you have heard from him, there is a title I talked about, and our viewer, I think, would be interested in knowing. Justice Hunter. Maybe if you could describe who is Mr. Katushabe Ronald? With that even, Justice Hunter, is it part of the description that describes him? If you could share with our viewers.
Okay, thank you so much. First and foremost, like I said, I'm a lawyer by profession. And what inspired me to do law is the abuses we do not in the field of justice. You can notice that I have been one of the lawyers in Vestige's case. What we have seen ever since the fight we had in the General Court Martial. I have also been in several engagements where my relatives and other people have turned to be victims of injustice. The abuse of injustice in our country. Judges, magistrates are not meant to do what they do. If you cannot deal with police investigations and find a way how you put them into your corner, it's hard to attain justice in the court systems of Uganda. The less we have. So the fight for me in this, even what I have indicated in the prisons, like when you visit Makshon has 3,000 plus prisoners. When you visit this other prison, that's Ruzira Upper, they have about 3,600 plus prisoners. The same applies to Jinja, Kirinya prison. So the issue of congestion in a prison, and 80% of these people have not being fully conducted with court trials. So the pain I do face from that, how people, property is being taken away from them. Encroachment is done with visibility of information, but nothing takes on to do the checks and balances, because there is influence of power. And the challenge comes with overstay in power, which as well magnifies, accelerates corruption. And in this, that's what compels me as Justice Hunter to say that I should do my best in every exercise I do to fight for justice.
As a lawyer, you decide.
Yes,
to come
as a lawyer,
solution.
as a victim of injustice, as a person who has witnessed. That's why even when I'm aspiring for these current presidential elections, my slogan was a voice for justice, Justice Hunter. It's even on the website. And you say that even the process itself denied us. So I have to continue fight for justice.
Well, as you have heard from him, such an amazing background. At least we have the right person to talk about this. And of course, our viewer, you're always part of this conversation, and we prioritize your needs. That's why we urge you to always drop in your comments and ask questions or even submit. Be part of this conversation. Across all our social media platforms, this conversation runs. And if you love matters of national importance, please share to a friend, such that at least we can have this amazing information together, as well as this great knowledge. When we talk of property rights and rule of law, maybe someone out there may not clearly understand it. As a lawyer and someone who has at least had experience with this, how would you describe rule of law? How would you describe property rights for the common Ugandan out there to understand?
Okay, thank you so much. I will start with the clear phrase of rule of law itself. Rule of law is all about, in the unbiased understanding, doing things in consideration or in accordance of the law. So you let the law be the superior. You follow this law. When you look at the elements we do so much consider when it comes to practicability of this, is that everyone has to be equal before this law. It has not to be because you are so and so, you all have to be treated equally in this kind of situation. Another thing is presumption of innocence until you're proved guilty, unless you yourself, you are pleaded guilty if it comes to cases of trial.
Before that, you're still innocent.
You're still innocent. Then the other thing is that you are all subordinate, all fall under the supreme law of the country. That's the constitution, which we normally refer to as the grand norm. So those three elements in the consideration of rule of law have to be there. So if you're dealing with property rights, that when you're dealing with property rights, as you the implementers, and where people do seek protection from, you should be in position to ensure that law is considered as you protect these people. Because the first primary duty of state or government is to protect its people and their rights. What rights do we talk about in regards to which kind of property? We talk about economic rights, ownership rights. Under economic rights, we look at the shares, the gains you would want under this kind of property. Ownership, you're taking on, it can be temporary or perpetual ownership. Temporary, like in scenarios where you say leasing property. In scenarios where you see most people here in Kampala are tenants. Then perpetual, you own this property the entire life. You actually at a discretion to pass it to other people because you actually have true ownership over it. And at times, certain people want to enjoy rights like their reputation. Now, we also come to the category of property. We have intellectual property. We also have this kind of tangible property. Maybe you can find, say, materials like own machinery. You can find land is also a property. Those are tangible kind of property. Now, in intellectual property, I've said there is a copyrights, there is trademarks, such kind of things.
So the ones that are physical and those that are not physical.
Yes. Now,
Exactly.
intellectual property comes in as a creation of the mind, innovation, where we look at patents, these rights, like you see musicians. When you produce a song, you own the track, you have rights over it. Economic rights, and as well these other, like we said, reputation rights. If you write a book, you're entitled to these rights. You don't want someone at one time to use this kind of book in any other category that is not that protective to your name. Yes. So we have also looked at things like franchise. You find that we have KFC, Cafe Java's, Coca-Cola operating here, but you may find that KFC is logically not from here, maybe from Kenya, East Africa. So by them, you can actually use the same brand, but that kind of technique, style of ownership is called franchise. You're using the other person's brand over the authorization. They have given you authority to use them, but they actually even test the kind of materials you're using to see whether they fit and maintain their name and reputation as well.
Well, such a great analysis. Now, we, of course, when we talk about property rights and we talk about liberties and rule of law, we cannot leave now this trend that has been in Africa of military coups. Now, the military taking over power. A major threat to rule of law, a major threat to, as you have explained now, property rights, because when the military power comes in, all the laws for some time stop working, and now it's new laws of, set by the military councils taking over. I don't know whether you've learnt about it, that now in Guinea-Bissau the military has taken over.
Yeah.
Now the government is under capture by the military. Of course, the military is saying that they foresaw some bad things happening in their country, that maybe peace was going to be disrupted. This comes at a point where the Electoral Commission was about to release results actually today, and now the Electoral Commission, the military says they could not wait for the results. Now the military, being now the judges, saying that what was expected out of these elections was not a free and fair results. Where does this leave Africa? Because the military coup has not only happened in Guinea, we have seen several military coups happening and almost taking over all the power of the people. What is your comment on that? What is the impact of this in regard to rule of law?
Yeah, in rule of law, there is what we used to refer to the Hans Kelsen's seal of law.
Yes.
That where the government is overthrown, we call it the political revolution, leads to a revolution in law or the constitution. And well, when you look at our constitution under Article 3, says that in case there is abuse to the constitution, people can take on to implement. So the challenge has always been that people who are in systems, who are in these governments, have refused to create systems of governance.
Functioning system.
Functioning system of governance where institutions are independent and overstay in power. Now, when this normally happens, it creates no hope in the democracy of the state, in, like I have said, the judiciary, and other law implementing institutions like police. So what people now resort to is to say, let us have the government overthrown. And like you said, it sets a big negative side of effect on property rights. I have at one time worked with refugee agencies. I work with the Refugee Law Project. But you see that there are those Sudanese who were ministers who are now in Uganda. These are people who didn't consider the law when they are in their country because they felt they are in power. But now they are facing harsh challenges. These are people who do not know how to deal with ownership of access to land, because when refugees go to another country or come here to Uganda, they do not have right of ownership over land, which is property. So they can only access land by lease. So what happens that in such scenarios, you actually lose your property when such governments come in. Now, you find that the people who are in government are now not safer. They seek asylum or refugee in other countries. So they have lost the property. They actually, in the consequence, do lose their lives as they are traveling, and they actually even lose confidence of what is happening all over because of lack of implementation of a strong system and adhering to the rule of law. Because rule of law shouldn't be an observation of only that country. It should be something that can be reflected even to other countries, whereby they actually notify or discover that people here, property is protected according to the constitution. People here, their human rights are respected. If it's court, trial is being done in a speedy and fair way, as quick as possible. So these are demands that actually should be manifested. But as far as war exists, governments do change. It sets most times bad implementations of, say, loss of property, loss of lives, abuse of human rights. And if there is that one kind of challenge that once you use a sword, you're always ready to die by a sword. So when these governments also come in power by means of a gun, also these governments normally leave power by means of a gun. That's what has happened with Uganda here.
Even this Guinea-Bissau.
Guinea-Bissau. Maybe we can take a hierarchy and borrow it from India, by then when it was getting its independence, under Mahatma Gandhi. There were peaceful means that were used. And you discover that you not hear overthrow or coup d'etats means of governance in India, because Mahatma Gandhi set a trend. Nelson Mandela set a trend for South Africa. So there is an issue of peaceful means of acquiring power. Those who use machinery, who use military forces, actually find it hard to live. It's a sense of guiltiness. So in the end, they also have to be overthrown.
Why do they see it as a threat to live? Why? Is it because of the atrocities they commit when they come into office? Why do these leaders find that, feel like that if they are out of the government, maybe their life is at risk? Or even saying that because for them they see that the people still need them, that if they leave, the country is likely to collapse. What makes them develop such a mindset, in your opinion? You know,
it's like a cheating woman. When the husband comes back, she's always angry to create the situation. Anytime they feel they are not safer, she's cheating and is hiding a man inside the house. So that's what literally happens with such governments. One, why this happens is the means they used were not honest and peaceful, and means of violence and a gun. So they are always insecure that actually any person can still utilize the same means and overthrow them out of government. So that's the big dilemma they do face. And because of insecurity and fear, you know, when military, we attain this government by means of military, anytime anyone can overthrow us. So they focus so much on defensive means, on creating fear in people, instead of doing what is right and focusing on peace and democracy, because this would be their better security. But it's hard for them.
Should we think that these military regimes coming in, should we think that they come in for the good of the people? Or there are also elements within the military that also are seeking some selfish, maybe they have selfish motives? Should we say now, like this military taking over Guinea-Bissau, we saw what happened in Gabon, it has happened in Sudan. Should we say that these military coups are meant for the good of the people, or they also come with their own motives not to benefit the people?
Absolutely, like what you have said, they come in with selfish interests. Now, a test can be subjected to mean that they are actually there for the people. The only way they can prove that they are there for the people, like what has happened in Guinea-Bissau, is when you capture government, hand it over to civilians, and we say we are here for protection. Look at when USA was getting its independence under the fight of those of George Washington, they actually said this government deserves to be led by people who are there. We have done our part. And that's what has set a hierarchy and has set a precedent for America to live in the roots of democracy. Unless the other alternatives can be that when attacks are on such person who's heading a state and acquired it by means of military, is not there to hesitate and cause bloodshed. He's there ready to die for the people. Then there is always peace, or it creates a debt for the incoming people to fight for the same. Let me take you to Burkina Faso. Thomas Sankara knew that he was actually going to be assassinated. He didn't object to the same. He was much aware. But for the love he had for people of Burkina Faso. Now we actually see another person coming in Burkina Faso to actually maintain and take on the same trends that Thomas Sankara was doing. So
following his example.
Following his example. So the clear demand is, I'm sorry to take you back to Uganda. If they had said, we are clocking 2005, we fought for peace, we fought for term limits, these are things we needed for our country, please. But when you say you want to protect the gains of selfish interests, mind you are sending it.
But for the case of Uganda, the government, led by President Museveni, says they have been elected by the people of Uganda. In an interview with a certain international media house, he said they had referred to him as a dictator, that the Ugandans are calling him a dictator. And by then, at least, he had been president for 5 consecutive times. And he said, a dictator that has been elected five times is not a dictator. Maybe the people have been loving these people. Overstay could be our problem as Ugandans or as Africans who choose to vote these leaders into office for long. Like we've been seeing Paul B in Cameroon, now here in Uganda. Overstay, maybe we have contributed greatly as citizens who vote these people back into office.
No, you see, the Genesis describes everything. There is a local saying that an animal that can eat the leaves of a potato can actually eat raw potatoes. The issue is the way you start it. If you start by means of the gun, there will always be fear, which shows you have to only live by means of the gun. I said, it's up to you saying voluntarily. Nelson Mandela was being tasked to go on and roll. USA, Bill Clinton was highly loved. They wanted him to come. But leaders initiate a position of saying, please, this is not it. Me as a person, you love me, but this is what I fought for. As a leader, you have to be an example of principles. Mahatma Gandhi, remember they had the fight between the Christians and the Muslims. Until they wanted him to be in power. He told them, no, I'm not ready to serve here as your leader, the Prime Minister. But what I can do is, room is there. Then when there were fights between the Pakistans and these ones who are Muslims, he said, no, he actually associated with even Pakistans. So a leader, you bear a great example. It's like you're setting a sacrifice, but actually your benefits do surface in the future. By what you're doing, they do pass to even your descendants. When you do things that are bad and you're forced out of power, these things tend to affect even your incoming generations. You're very much aware, no matter how much hardworking Gaddafi was for Libya, but his son has just left the prison. You're aware of that.
Yes.
And he's being watched. He's not allowed to move beyond Libya. So you see that the dilemmas you create for your own people, you overstay in power, you acquired power by means of a gun, then you have insisted to stay and you say you're protecting the gains, you actually create challenge for yourself and your people. Your property is not much secure. Your people are not secure because anytime you feel you can lose this.
And rule of law is always at stake with such a leader.
Of course, abuse. Let me tell you one thing. When there is nothing like limited government and democracy, rule of law will always be abused. Because let me give you an example. When we talk about limited government, you mean the government is small in size and limited in period. So it being in small in size, its effort concentrates on protection of the people, because the key primary role of government is to protect the people and the human beings and their property. So when your issue is on protecting the people themselves and what you've done, but when you say you're making the government bigger, Mr. Kenneth, when you say, now you're hosting me here, we need another moderator, we need another person here, these people have to be catered for. So when you say a country like Uganda has gotten 145 districts, so when you say the 145 districts, you find a district you want there 3 MPs, like I come from Kakumiro. Kakumiro, we have about, those are 3 MPs. Now, plus the woman MP, the Prime Minister herself. So actually almost 5. So when you see these other 5, but you ask yourself, do these people actually have a high court? People are dying in court because of many cases. They do not have. How many health centers do they have? They are not there. So then, because the issue of the high court and security personnel would be that people can rush there to have their property protected. We file a claim. If we are filing a matter of ownership of land, that actually judgment can be ready after investigations are done this week, by next week. But these are things which take even 10 years, because court is overwhelmed. Not saying lawyers are not there, no. Lawyers are there, and there are actually people who are there to represent themselves. So when these challenges do surface, it ends up to exploit the other route. So service goes away. Then I think there is a set of high taxes. High taxes come in that there is a need to facilitate these people who are in the system. Now, when that one comes in, you find that taxes that are highly collected, actual accountability is not being surfaced. When have you ever heard here in Uganda, we are ready to the budget, but we are not ready to how they spent? To say, actually we spent this and this. You'll be shocked when they tell you a toilet which has actually been constructed by 2 million, that they acquired 2 billion to construct it. These things have happened in schools. So that rule of law goes also hand in hand with transparency. We have in our constitution a right to access information. So people should be actually in position to always access information. We spent like this, we got your money, we spent like this and this. So you find that there again, rule of law is abused.
That one, we as Ugandans have not paid much attention to ask for accountability for where our taxes go. Have we had our own initiative as citizens, or we left it for maybe the members of parliament?
No, the issue is very clear. Not saying the member of parliament. Institutions here are dead. If you can file a complaint with any institution, and it actually takes very, very many months minus a reply. I filed complaints for people in Uganda Human Rights Commission. But you actually find you file another letter after 2 months demanding for a reply, and it doesn't surface. We participated in this election as an aspirant. I went there to appear for colleagues in the tribunal. But this, they say, a tribunal should be conducted within 14 days. If the denial was on 23rd September, when the deadline for nominations were, and now we had a hearing just last week. And the hearing does not disclose when the decision is coming up from the Chairperson Electoral Commission. He's saying, we shall let you know. That one comes after the elections. So it doesn't put trust in the institutions of government. So people are like, why should I even waste time to go and even report to these other institutions? What people actually do in land matters, they forego to lose their property and say, let me forego the issue of land. The system is that down low.
You talked about these institutions and how they lack independence. Now, referring to rule of law, does the judiciary have independence, not only here in Uganda? If we reflect on Africa, do we see judicial independence? Because it's vital for rule of law. If the judicial system is not independent, we don't expect justice there. How do you see the situation in Africa regarding the judicial independence?
Yeah, you see, when we talk about judicial independence, we mean that this institution can actually operate by itself without no external interferences. Now, that one comes in first. That operation of being independent should be that there are no external fears as well. The challenge with Africa is one that judges in most of our governments are appointed by the sitting president. Now, when the sitting president actually appoints and parliament is there to approve, your worry is you are not sure when this president is leaving power. So if you dare take a decision contrary to their wishes, you are actually at stake. You lose your job. There is a tendency you have met your family get used to the situation you're in. 2, you also create fear for your family. So that leaves a dilemma for lack of independence for the judicial sector. So actually you generally find that in countries where democracy and term limits is not in, there is no independence for judiciary. Now, let us look at our neighbors in Kenya. You remember when Kenya judges tried at one time to nullify the election results? But why they did that, they felt they have the autonomy in their independent in their institution. Because for them, actually, they knew that the president can actually leave. And they can actually have a president in the other party. In USA, they actually know today it's the Democrats, tomorrow it's the Republicans. So I may make this decision against the Democrats. This person won't make any interfere against my family. One, I'm protected. We have a system we have built. But here, even before you take a reading of your file, you are not sure. By the time you're going even to say something, it has been already analyzed. Because judges here, like in superior courts, if you say Court of Appeals starting from High Court, their work is done by researchers, leave alone at times magistrates. So by the time even the researcher is doing the work, the secretaries, information is already communicated, where you're heading. So you're actually directed on what to do. So there is a very, very big challenge that courts here in Africa are actually not independent. It's for a few countries, like I have said, that have democracy and have honored the term limits and the respect over human rights. Then there, they can at least have independence of judiciary.
Do we see any need to reform maybe some laws? Because if we talk about rule of law, and now some of the laws we already have, because we would expect to now put those into action, and if some of them are just like that, they give the executive and the president more powers, making him almost above the law. He can appoint maybe the Chief Justice and appoint these leaders in the judiciary. Do we see, do we need any reforms there? Or there is any other way, alternative where these laws, much as they're in place giving the president powers, at least there is someone out there checking somewhere to make sure that the powers given to the president are not misused in regard to appointing these people? Do we still need such laws in our constitutions as Africa, or we no longer need them and we need reform?
The first laws and reforms we do need is that every state in Africa should be looking at the issue of term limits, avoiding the issue of overstaying power. The moment you have that, you have created security of governance for your country, because it makes things go on easier. But minus that, then these other laws will be actually eaten up, will make no sense. Practicability goes on less. You know, one time, Machiavelli, in his book called The Prince, he said that when you fought with certain people, you do not need to let them go away from you. They actually have to keep around you. Give them assignments. Let them work for you. So it creates for you more security. One, you're dealing with people you know. These people are there to do work in position of pleasing you. So
win your heart.
Yes. So even when one of your relative goes contrary, maybe they are grabbing someone's land, these people should be in line to protect you as a statesperson. But you think of a scenario, They are investigating where a gentleman has killed up people. They have lost their land. And this gentleman, the father has just left power and is not connected to those in power. It would be easy to conduct investigations over encroachment on such kind of piece of land and to give better results, honest decisions on who should be the actual owner of this land. But in scenarios where you are not in a position to know that the person is still actually in governance, as the head of state, it's hard even to conduct investigations. So it really makes it hard. So that's why I say, like, when we have term limits first, because when you see countries that at least have them, there is somewhere they are. That when you have term limits restored, there is that kind of protection, thinking that this one will go away, this one will go away. Then too, it also sets a reflection. Me and you, Kenneth, we cannot be perfect. Even though we might say we all come from the Western, but there is something different from us. If today you headed Uganda for 5 years, there are things you'd love, maybe which I am not aware of. There are policies you do implement as a person.
New ideas.
Yes, you can say for your sector is in entertainment and actually education. You say, I'm going to change the curriculum and work on the entertainment sector. You have created jobs in 2 sectors. You have dealt with a better Uganda, and you have let people know. Because the first key thing for a country to develop, like Nelson Mandela said, education, education 3 times, is how people are protected in their mindset. How free are they able to learn, and what do they know? And that's why even in the Bible, in the book of Hosea, chapter 6, God said, my people are perishing because they do not know. So when you're in position for you to say, I'm implementing this, as me, Katushabe, will come in and say, okay, you know what? For me, I'm going to work on judiciary, the rule of law, and agriculture. So there also come some person who say is good at military management and what. And that's how those countries do develop.
Well, thank you so much. That is Mr. Katushabe Ronald. He's a lawyer and a justice hunt, as you have heard. And we are taking an insight in the African liberty and rule of law and property rights. This is the Mighty Drive Show, and we're always here Monday to Friday. Please feel free to tap on the subscribe button and join us. If you are watching us for the first time, share this conversation with a friend. Now I want to ask you, Mr. Katushabe, about the regional organizations, the African Union, the East African Community. These things are happening in Africa. We are seeing military coups happening in Africa, saying that there is abuse of human rights, now forcing the military to take over. We have had several issues that these organizations, these regional organizations would be working upon, but we don't see them working. We see opposition figures being detained, and we have not had the East African community talk about that. We have not had any regional organization condemning it. A case in point is now Dr. Vesges in jail. He was got from Kenya, abducted from Kenya, and everything is moving smoothly. No one is condemning this. Do we think that these regional organizations have been beneficial in promoting rule of law? Because the same is happening in Tanzania. Tundu Lissu was arrested, giving room for now President Samia Suluhu to win with over 90%. Do we see the impact of these regional bodies?
I think I can say maybe these organizations actually do not work. They are a design of a dog, but without teeth and cannot bite.
Even barking, do they bark?
They do not bark. Have you heard anyone talk about the Vestiges issue? They do not bark. At least they would say a statement. Statements are only coming out from law societies, East African Law Society. That's why we have been with the Senior Counsel Masa Karua. You'd see the American Legal Society showing up in UK. These are other kind of societies showing in as civil societies. But you actually see that these East African corporations There's nothing they are doing. It's like telling witch doctors to gather and construct a church. So, because the means these people acquired government, these are the big questions I told you, the initial stages used. Most of these countries that set up this thing acquired it by means of a gun. So it actually makes the institutions weak, because there is no way they can speak about their fellows, yet they know the means they use to acquire them. Let me give you an example of United Nations organization, and we have UN, we have the European Union, we have the African Union. Now, these organizations, the target of their setups, in 1945, when the United Nations was being formed up, it was as a necessity for peace. Peace was their primary consideration. The countries that vetoed in the formation of peace were not the countries that caused the wars. So I'm showing you that the start normally communicates where you head. Because you look at country like France, by then the Greater Britain, we have Russia, we have USA. These countries, and we remember the war was so much led by Germany, that's under Hitler, and Mussolini, Italy, these kind of countries. Yes. So if you would say that it is actually these countries that were heading the war are going to be the heading powers of UN, then it would mean peace won't be there. They won't actually back at their fellow leaders. The foundation was weak. Yeah, the foundation was weak. But it being its country that were actually protecting peace, if you notify that actually USA amidst that time what came in was making sure that people can actually seek refuge in USA, you discover that the richest men actually in USA are not typical Americans. They are Jews. Now we have a South African person there. They are welcoming instead of saying we need to promote peace and welcome these people. When you look at Germany, the way they were even killing people, saying short people should be killed, Jews should be killed. So entirely there is no way you can say you're going to create peace, promote peace, when yourself you cannot practice peace. Why does even you get shocked that part of the vetoing powers of the United Nations, Africa is not there? They have no single country. And you know why? They have not actually exposed peace. When you practice peace, you attract peace. So that's why the East African community, you see we have challenges in marketing, because when you again talk about property rights, we look at free trade, trading beyond borders. But because of selfish interests, militaries, insecurity upon what they're doing, we cannot have that kind of free trade. You are much aware at one time when Rwanda had said there is no trading between Uganda and Rwanda. Now the question is, did the Rwandan government come in power by means of an election? The answer is no. So you see that these things actually answer themselves. The means you use, when you get a woman by grabbing, you are at higher chances of losing this person. But the time the person has voluntarily decided, without any external forces, decided to be with you, they will be ready to tolerate even the internal challenges you have had to maintain peace.
What could be the solution for this? If these regional bodies are to work, what should be done? Who is to take the lead first? Are they the citizens, the Africans? Are they leaders in power? Or what new strategies?
No, that's a typical mistake. We can't say the leaders in power. I told you there is no way you can ask witch doctors to construct a church, unless if they are going to practice witchcraft in that church. The only thing that we have to do is ask the citizens over these countries. I am much respectful to the Kenyans with their Gen Z generation, what they are trying to do. I had an interaction with one Kenyan who was like, may his soul rest in peace, Raila Odinga. They are telling me, we don't care about what the elders are now telling us. We are now concerned for our own Kenya as us, the young people. So it means it's us to take initiative, come together, set an example. And it has to be a traversing, that when one country does it, if we are to help Africa, that we citizens, it motivates, tend to be supportive. Either can be by means of technology, what it goes to other countries. So when it starts from Uganda and it goes to other countries, like that, just like you see independence. When countries all over Africa were fighting for independence, it started by one country. You'd hear this one, 1960. 1961, 1962, 1963. So it kept on moving. It's a cycle.
Learning from each other and helping each other.
Learning from each other and helping each other. Yes, yes. And that has to be a collective support of citizens acting in modes of activism. Leave alone these bindings of political parties. They actually do divide us. If we put ourselves to one, human rights, look at activism and the betterness of our country and Africa. That's the better pillars that can take us forward. Is
the environment fertile for such? Because we see abductions of people who come to talk about some of the things, some activists being detained, some actually up to now still missing. Is there a peaceful environment for such in some countries in Africa? Do we see that happening and people losing hope in trying to stand up for the truth?
Now, the first thing is, when we say to create this, it doesn't mean the ground has to be fertile, because the ground can be fertile in the other opposite way. That we have the anger and we are hungry for the betterment. Because those ones who are in charge are not willing. They can't say we create for this room. No way, it can't happen. Like I told you, there is no way a witch doctor will ever come a Bible in their house. In the shrine? No. So it's you to say we are actually demolishing these shrines. It's going to be a battle. If you're Christians, you're going to fast, pray, take on action. And leave alone these things. I'm a Christian, I'm Katushabe, it means let's pray. These things of lying to us, you go to church and I hear clergy is preaching. You know God says, maintain peace. I have read the Bible from Genesis to Revelations. There is no way it says, just speak. It involves actions. Matthew chapter 7 verse 10 says, knock and the door will be open. It doesn't say, open for me. You have to knock. That's action. You see, when Moses was trying to liberate the Jews, they had to take action. He first left. People talk about David killing Goliath, but they forgot the guy took training. He was actually training on how to protect the sheep, fighting against the lion. He used the stone. He didn't just look at Goliath and said, Goliath, die. These are things they do like us. You know, young people, come, keep quiet, maintain what? Peace, let's... No. The only thing you have to say, God protect us as we fight for this justice. There is a verse that I normally move with, that's Proverbs chapter 31, verse 8 to 9 says, speak for justice and stand for the poor. So you can't say, it doesn't say, and sit for the poor. It says, stand for the poor. So it means there is an action you have to take. So it's a collective demand to the young generation. If we say we are setting a better in lands in terms of intellectual property, what we have to take on an innovation skill. If we are saying we have to take an action on something, we have to take on something. But you can't say that we shall just speak. Speak and let things be worked on. No, I think God will just say these people are never serious. And He will be led to help us. All right.
That is it. The conversation is still sailing smoothly. Now I want us to cross to now specifically property rights. We have had these global commons, those that we believe are shared by all countries. Recently, President Museveni was talking about the Indian Ocean. Some Ugandans took it lightly as if it was something to laugh about. And some were saying that according to international law, actually Uganda is entitled to that ocean in one way or the other. We have seen conflicts arising because President Museveni said there could be potential wars coming in due to that issue. President Museveni says that everywhere there is a regime change in Kenya, now they have to sit down again, find measures, make sure at least there is no challenges between Uganda and Kenya in accessing the Indian Ocean. The same has been happening, we saw in Egypt, we saw the troops coming to the borders, Egypt and Ethiopia, in construction of the dam along the River Nile. There's still a lot of questions that are unanswered. We saw the same in Sudan. What is causing this? Who really has rights over these global commons? Do we lack clear legislation there, maybe international law, or even the leaders we have in power, the ones that are the problem? What could be the lasting solution for this? Who has rights over these, the ones we term as global commons?
You see, the first challenge we faced in terms of ownership over these areas is that first, even we do not have documentation as us Africa. That's where the whites are ahead of us. How can you say John Speak came and found the source of River Nile? You have actually talked about the men who were sitting there, who were found there. So there is a challenge. You find another white, all rivers, all big lakes in Africa, actually discovered by these foreigners. So the investment in resource recognition in our country, in Africa, is a very, very big challenge. And like I said, it starts with power now. When the whites were here, they left for us challenges. And this set an initiative demand for leadership that our leaders should have actually come in position to cure it and set themselves sacrifice. Not say they would want to actually gain from them, individual self-interest, but with the intention of serving their country. Now, when you look at the issue of the Indian Ocean, look at, because at one time, our colonialists wanted East Africa as one. You remember the demand of the federation by Kabaka Mwanga, what led to the exile he had as earlier on. So those issues of them saying this is one because they wanted to have control over Africa, basing on their intent and the investments, is that it created a challenge that the initial stages our leaders should have done is to say, okay, for our peace, do we need demarcations, or we can say for a better development, we actually do not need them? Because the fight for boundaries, this is a global challenge. In Europe, they have tried to settle it, but it has failed. And it's always a center for spark of wars. People look at the Crimean, the issue in Crimea. This is not, we had the Crimean War years to come. Before France starts as one of the fastest country to come here in Africa in 1830. After the fight between the Belgium and what think they can now not succeed. When Napoleon had actually left power, even Napoleon decided, they say, it's hard. We now need a country that we can now grab and have control. Because whatever is always behind this are selfish interests. It's not for the betterment of respect for human rights. When you say, because it starts with the leader saying, I have my own selfish interests in this. Because you see that now France extends and say, let us go to South Africa by 1830s. And that's how we see the Afrikaners come in. The Dutch and these other people, Netherlands, what and what, these people now starting to come in after the defeat of the 1830 revolutions. So that the demands of international having interest in other countries, that's what brings issues. Because why is the Indian Ocean being an interest? We are looking at the issues now of trading. Another one will look at it as a sense of security, saying, actually, I'm not secure when I do not have control over this.
Having a navy force there.
A navy force there. That's already, you see what is happening in Russia. Or the issues are always stepping from that. Now, you would say, because the International Court of Justice and UN, these international institutions were set up to say that they can handle complaints happening between interstate, to avoid interstate wars. And that's how the African Union came in slowly, the East African, then we have the Greater Lakes region. That these institutions should be there to actually honor the same. But the challenge is, like I've told you, when leadership is not gaining the honest way in these countries, there is need for selfish interests. So it is hard to observe these things for the common good. Because the first thing to look at is the Indian Ocean should have been. We are looking at the cross-border market. We are looking at these countries gaining together. If Uganda is a landlocked country, and we are looking at the genuine, this thing happened. As honest leaders and entire Africa, how can we handle these things together?
For once and for all.
Yes, for once and for all. But you find, because of selfish interests, I have paid a visit to Chisoro. Chisoro, there is a mountain called Mugahinga. It neighbors Rwanda. But if you had studied the interests behind that mountain, my friend will say there is still a lot of fire coming up. So there is always that issue of saying, if we do consider one as Africa, if we are saying Africa should actually become the next superpower of the world, producing the next superpower of the world, we should look at avoiding wars over these international bodies. An ocean, a sea, a mountain, say, how can we use them for the betterment of us? My colleague, a fellow lawyer who works with Isaac Semakade, has been in those countries of Germany and what? He said, here, you say a border, you're like, here, there is nothing, you just cross, you're here. But when you look at us, the interests here in Africa have really killed us. So the issue is, one, to eliminate selfish interests, have better leadership, and so we are looking at a free market economy of cross borders where people do interact. Then there it can help us ourselves to set our own self-laws, other than inviting the external powers, those in Europe, to help us on our own problems, when we actually know that they also come in these countries with selfish interests. So if we are saying we want to help our own Africa, our own leaders should eliminate the fact of selfish interests. Then look at what helps the entire people in Africa. Look at the cross-border market. Look at the respect for human rights. And then say, okay, we can have laws that protect us. The laws should not come in to limit us. They should say, actually, when I'm going to Kenya, I have a protection over my property, I have protection over the sea, I have this and this. Because in the end, what brings in these fights, dear Kenneth, is selfish interests.
Every country wanting to benefit alone from these resources. Where does this leave us as Africa when we are even having attempts to bring Africa together and have a united Africa? Now starting with East Africa, with attempts to make sure that East Africa is one country now. Where does this leave us? Are we close to achieving this? Is it a dream that will always be talked about in history, that there were attempts to achieve it? Do we see any possibility if challenges like these are arising and we still have some selfish motives behind?
It doesn't take us anywhere. It actually attracts more challenges. You see, when you look at a battling family, when they start saying, this is my property, this is my share, it's just like when you're walking and you step on someone. That person has not moved, you have as well not moved. You all keep stagnant. But if you say as a family, it's okay, we are looking at the betterment of our family. You are good at this, I'm good at this. If it's an ocean, okay, for you, you are good maybe in this kind of technology. For you, would want to use it for this. For me, I would want my people to do this and this. That one would make things much easier. But when you start saying, but you know, actually, it's me owning this piece of land, I also own it. Now, when you're fighting for this piece of land in a family, you file, say, a suit in court. If you're lucky enough that you have not had fights, because some have fights and they resort to killings and loss of property. And these challenges can not only be at the family level, they can actually go extreme, even to the international level we are talking about. That now we can look at interstate wars, one. Then we can look at hatred between countries. If I had, I was now free to trade with a Kenyan, what and what, now I first say, home first. Now it creates a lot of mistrust, and there is no development at all. Like in a home, when you say you have filed a suit in court, court gives you an injunction. No one is going to use that land. Now the question is, none of you is still developing. You find even your father will pass on, your mother passes on, you're still fighting for the same property. So by the time your descendants come in, they are even not aware of what they are fighting for. And in the end, it is even taken up by external people. So we should start saying, you know, whites are interfering in our country, it is us who is giving them room. Africa is the richest continent. Richest continent in terms of what? Minerals. But it's so painful that countries actually with these minerals are the very poorest because of leadership and selfish interests. You have seen DR Congo. Should be the richest country, it's the richest country in terms of minerals, Africa, but it is actually the poorest. There was a finding out that Belgium is one of the highest trading country in terms of diamond, marking the second years back. I don't know whether it's the position now, but you would find there is no source of diamond in Belgium. They get it from Congo.
A great concern.
Yeah, there is a mineral of cardiac, the one that is used to make helicopters. These things come from Congo. So if the leaders do not look at the issue of saying we are doing it for our people, then these stupid things like what Mobutu Sese Seko was doing in Congo, you want to have everything in your house gold, you want your children to study in a day school, go to France, attend classes, come here, day scholars. That's the problem that has killed Africa. Instead of saying, well, it's for the entire Africa, for our people. Do your leadership. Leadership is all about a clear definition and ordinary one. Establish challenges, create solutions, and bear sacrifice for your society.
There have been allegations that even the international community has been part of disrupting peace and prosperity of some of these mineral-rich regions, especially in Congo. There are also allegations from the very African countries, like they are saying Rwanda is part of the rebel, is supporting the rebel groups there, the M23 rebels. Of course, the M23 are saying they are Rwandese, but of Congo origin. They are Congolese as well. They also want their rights. They are entitled to Congo. And Rwanda says they are not supporting these rebels. Of course, there are allegations that some countries in Europe are benefiting from this state of instability in Congo, and they benefit from these minerals, and even some other mineral-rich areas in Africa. Do we see any possible solutions for that? Because if, due to selfish interests, like you said, if some countries, even the international community, having now selfish motives in these countries, sponsoring terrorism, which is a fertile ground for now exploiting these minerals, do we see lasting solutions for this, or we are likely to stay bound in this situation of restlessness, abuse of law?
The lasting solutions come in as well, first that recognizing there is a challenge. First dealing with that challenge, and then the solutions can be there lasting. Like I said, if the standard of leadership here is that we need to create better countries, because these external or the white countries we are talking about, they take advantage of the weaknesses inside. If you had a family and all your children believe in you, say if it's a monogamous family, it's always hard for the external people who are fighting you to sponsor one of the children to cause chaos in your home. Whenever they come, you're united. But because you're not transparent, there is a lot of divisionism in home, those are the challenges, those are the weaknesses your external people will look at and take advantage of your home. So the first key solution would be that if we would have the respect for limited government, we have respect for rule of law, these other countries would have no basis. Do you know that these countries have come in to us as a means of protection for human rights at first, to gather this information? Because it starts by first gathering this information. They don't happen to know about the minerals in Congo, minus coming here first. The issue is, if they would come here as tourists, it would be okay. But when they come here intent of helping and happening to know the weaknesses we have, then they say they actually have these loopholes, we can set our basis by funding terrorism. Because you actually see that countries like USA, to be honest, under the leadership of Barack Obama or the Democrats, they have come in Africa saying to countries they are helping for human rights, but as well also having interest in. Because one, as another capitalist style, is that you can only sell guns when you also create war. You saw that simple clip. If the younger boy wanted to get more windows to work on, as the father is a carpenter, had to shoot stones over the glass windows. And then the father would work over the same.
To create that
Yes,
demand.
yes. That's why we actually have viruses, they create viruses, and actually create antiviruses. That's the only way you can make money. So we actually have to study these measures and say, you know what? It's us giving these people room. When you beat your wife and cause maybe she loses an eye or tooth, the preparation over this thing, you're making money for a doctor. So if I'm a doctor, you never say a doctor is a counselor telling you stop fighting. A counselor has not to be a doctor because they will be losing on money. So you fight, get injuries, come, they make money. Equally to a person who makes coffins. People who make coffins were so much in the COVID season. You find someone said, I really made money in the COVID season.
This was my best period.
This was my best period. So you see that we need to study these kind of situations and say, the preventive measures we do set is that let us have a limited government. Let's have respect for rule of law. Let us protect people's rights. When we do these things, then we have actually can set a command for the other countries. You look at the most peaceful country, Switzerland. Have you ever heard of any civil war in Switzerland?
No.
It has set its own pace. You'll actually find there was in USA, there was trying to be encroached on USA, there was trying to come to the borders of UK, but you cannot find a war in Switzerland. They have studied the art of peace. This is where security officers do not move with guns in public. But the question is, they have studied the art of peace. I even look at our villages and say, these are the first civils we have in our country. The man is saying, promote peace, God is good, but they are holding guns. The ones protecting them are having guns. So I wonder, what kind of peace would want to sell? What kind of attraction do we sell when we are not doing what is right? The solution is simple. Do what is right. Africa will be secure. Development will come. And trust me, if the president of Burkina Faso now, the way he's in power, looks at an element of saying he overstays in power, I assure you Burkina Faso will still not have peace and they will not be developed. The development they are accelerating to will be brought down. But the issue is, if he can say, now I've reached certain years, it's okay, colleagues, they may have room for others. The person you normally hand over power to, they always find a challenge to say they should work better than you if it's handed to them peacefully. By the moment they say they are also fighting it forceful against you, they say we want to protect the gains, what we fought for. You know that word where it comes from, protect the gains. So in the end, there is nothing you'll gain for your country if you focus on protecting
that,
yourself.
Similar manner,
Interest gains.
How best can we have now economic development in regard to these international shared maybe oceans? How can we, because now like for the issue of Egypt and Ethiopia over the dam, it was a hydroelectricity dam being constructed for the benefit of the people of Ethiopia over now Nile. Egypt saying it is a threat, it could disrupt their water levels and lead to shortages of water in Egypt. How best can we use these resources that are shared internationally to avoid conflicts? We all share and enable our economic development in our countries, but without posing more threats. Do we need an external overseer, maybe as an organization? Do we need leaders themselves to always come on table and find ways? How best can we use those resources, share them without bringing conflicts?
Okay, the first thing to put in consideration are the environmental laws, international environmental laws and principles. They are those principles that govern us everywhere, because like even it is in our constitution under Article 31 that the person has a right to live in a clean and a healthy environment. And as a libertarian, when I talk about liberty, is that before you want to have liberty, don't interfere with other people's liberty. Now, when we are looking at the sharing of such dam, the complaints they do all have. If the complaint is not based only on ownership, but the first key thing to be considered should be the environmental policies. Which policies we normally have? We have like the polluter pays principle, the sustainable principle. Now, the polluter pays principle says that let us all use this environment minus causing pollution. This one. For you may think, because you feel you need a toilet here, create a sewage system, but which is actually affecting my life. You're creating it over. So your issue should be the first consideration. So the first country here should be that actually, if they are saying their environmental principles are being interfered to, then the other country is wrong. It should first be the environmental principles which focus on the protection of life. Then later we can look at economic rights. Life first. Then the economic rights come in.
First, later. Well,
because then there's also another one we call the sustainable principle. That let us use the environment for the benefit of those who are current and the future. So if what you're going to do can actually affect the future, then you're not looking at it. If you say you're going to take over Lake Victoria, construct on top and actually dump sewage all over Lake Victoria, you're not looking at the protection. That's why you find prisons like Luzira are near the lake. Those people live in a congested place. So they have to have fresh air and better oxygen coming from these sites. So these are measures that have to be looked at first. And that's why I was actually in disagreement when they said Luzira prison is going to be transferred for economic rights. You first look at life first before you look into any other thing.
Well, in a minute or two, I would like that you help our viewer understand the relationship, because it has been talked everywhere, even the international community. The international community is saying that with the absence of rule of law in Africa or even in the world, there can't be development. I would wish that you help us understand in a minute, how is rule of law linked to development? What is the relationship in there? How does rule of law bring about development, and how does property rights also bring in development? For our viewer out there to clearly understand this narrative, how do these two bring about development?
Now, rule of law, how it brings in development, because it's like a cycle. You cannot produce unless you've been pregnant. So law sets a protection to these rights and what you're going to do. We have always had a challenge when it comes to patent rights, like here in Uganda, and you discover people are not that innovative. If you have protection in what you're doing and what you are allowed to do, then it encourages you to work hard. So that's how the importance of rule of law. That the means of registering a patent and the laws in consideration actually protect me. So it encourages me to do business in that kind of way, which as well communicates to development. When we look at land, let me give you an example. Here, refugees, foreigners, are not allowed to own land. They can only access land via lease means to a period not exceeding 99 years. Now, then for a public land, it's all about 40 years. So, such a person normally has gotten fear to establish a structure that can exist for 200 years because they know at a certain time.
Is longer than in the contract.
Two, if, and that one, that's even where partial the law is. Now, where you have refused actually to say, when I'm dealing with you and you say, we shall not enter into the law, but have trust in me, establish this structure. Now, when you establish this structure and you're not sure, it brings in external forces and conflicts over ownership of the same.
Yes.
So, rule of law comes in to give clarification on who should own. So, when you own, you are motivated to develop. But before, you are not sure of what you're developing. So, it's very hard because the first thing is, if I'm sure I own Digitalk, then I will do any kind of renovations I want because we actually say we know it. But where we are certain person that will actually at one time say you people go away, it's literally hard. So law sets a foundation of saying, okay, you are now secure. You actually can claim rights because it entirely means you can sue, you can be sued.
So the environment is safe for now
investment
initiatives.
Yeah, because the issue is, when I sue you, in the end I have to be compensated for what I lost, for the damages I incurred. But when there is no law, I have no hopes and I'm at risk. Development is normally hard.
Good.
That's why, where corruption is high, because corruption is not law binding, development is a challenge. Because I'll give you a history of Uganda. When things started saying, you know what, when you're in government and you steal and invest your structures, have structures here, when the government changes, they first take your things, grab them.
So you take them outside.
So what they said, you say, no, let us invest abroad. Let us invest in other people.
Because
that tends to be a challenge.
Give your parting remarks to our viewer and your message you would wish the world to know and implement.
The message I want to say is that in whatever you deal in, any kind of transaction, any kind of property, first seek guidance for the law. You can do research. If you're purchasing land, first do due diligence. Find out who is the owner of that land. Use the local means. Go to lands, do the search, get to know who is the owner of that land. Then make an agreement, go to a title to those means, if the chance is there, the means of transfer. Then be clear on every terms. If you're purchasing land, do I have a right of way, what we call easements? Do I have a right over water? Because these are things which tend to affect. If you're a tenant, don't be excited of the room you're going to rent, or a house or a premise. First, look at the conditions in the agreement. In the case of disputes, what are your first alternative? They are saying you can go for arbitration before a law. Any word affects you. When you say shall and may, these are different. When you say shall first be handled by an arbitrator, it means you cannot go to courts of law before. You go to an arbitrator. And you find it's hard, arbitrators are expensive going there. So you can say, maybe we shall, maybe a mediator, then courts of law. So these are key terms to consider. Don't be excited. Be careful whenever you're dealing with research. It creates for you security. It creates a right of claim to your landlord if you are unlawfully evicted, because I know most people here in Kampala, in Uganda, are tenants. The landlord as well, it will also save you. When this person is tending to be a problem, to stay in your house, is not cooperative. Actually, even in business, everything, it creates for you security, a right of claim. So follow the law, make contracts, don't be excited to work casually,
put everything into writing. It gives you evidence and how you can actually claim and keep standing for what is right. To the young generation, fight for justice. Don't speak and say we are praying to God. Don't drink alcohol because you feel it's the only way you have given up. We have to give on, fighting, keep on fighting until the way is open for us. Thank you so much.
I can't add in any other word. Thanks for being part of this conversation from the very beginning of the Mighty Drive. And this show will still be uploaded on our platforms at the Alternative Dig Talk. You can always watch it anytime you feel like. It's been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much, Mr. Katushabe. We have really learned a lot, and we are humbled to have you. And even your grandchildren will get to see this message forever. So that's a brick you're putting on the world, because the conversation has been for the entire continent and the world. Thank you so much. I've been Kenneth Rubatusimbira. See you some other time. Good morning.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.